Organizations face challenges in delivering effective learning experiences while balancing costs and resources. But what if you could elevate your organization's potential with our custom training delivery? Introducing Infopro Learning's expert global learning delivery solutions. Infopro Learning offers instructor-led training (ILT), virtual instructor-led training (VLT), on-the-job training, conferences and events, executive coaching, group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. Our expert facilitators from diverse backgrounds are ready to elevate your workshops and programs. With Infopro Learning, optimize your delivery model, minimize costs, and maximize facilitator utilization, and deliver impactful learning experiences effortlessly. With a global network of skilled facilitators fluent in over 50 languages and representing over 140 countries, backed by over 15,000 learning consultants, 300+ learning suppliers worldwide, and delivering over 100,000 training hours annually. To unlock your organization's potential, connect with us today.
Hello, and welcome to today's Training Industry Leader Talk. Training a Global Workforce, sponsored by Dale Carnegie, Infopro Learning, NovoEd, RWS, and WhatFix. I'm Dee Caraglino, event producer and your host for today. Before we dive into our next session, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speakers and get the most out of today's session. This will be an interactive session, so throughout the event, please feel free to put your comments into the chat window and put your questions into the Q&A window. We'll be monitoring your comments and answering your questions throughout the session. I've enabled closed captions for this event, and you can turn those on or off using the closed caption icon in your toolbar. We encourage you to share the information you received today with your colleagues and network via social media. Tag us at Training Industry so we're able to track your contribution to the conversation. At the end of your time with us, you'll notice a short survey pop open in your browser, and we'd appreciate your thoughts on today's event. And lastly, all of our sessions are being recorded and will be archived on trainingindustry.com. You'll receive a follow-up email from us with a link to today's on-demand sessions and materials. If this is your first Training Industry event, we'd like to welcome you. Training Industry exists to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D through live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, and our podcast. Make Training Industry your go-to resource for learning solutions. Visit trainingindustry.com to learn more. And now I would like to introduce you to Leon Boland and Lee Russell. With 18 years experience in learning, customer experience, and contact centers, Leon was recently voted a top 20 CX influencer in the Customer Experience Foundation's Power 100. He leads Infopro's Creative Learning Studio and has a wealth of experience working across a multitude of sectors, including telecoms, financial and insurance services, retail, and travel. Lee Russell is a seasoned L&D professional with nearly 15 years of experience in the industry. He specializes in leadership development, focusing on cultivating leadership capacity for individual and organizational growth. He's partnered with top global brands to enhance their leaders' emotional intelligence as a key driver of success. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thanks for the intro, Dee.
Very much.
I feel like I'm in amongst an award winner here with you, Leon, but great to be here and great to be part of this session and hopefully sharing with you some useful insights and some thoughts that Leon and I have both gathered over the last few years and over our experience. So there's the introduction that you've had from me and from Dee and also from Leon as well. So I'm just going to share our slides right now so we can get started. Cool. So just to double check, you can see those, Leon, yeah? Yeah.
Good. All good.
So we wanted to talk to you about enhancing learning and how we enhance learning through leveraging new technologies. It's pretty clear that when it comes to learning technology, the market is huge. The rate of change is constant and the advancements are ever evolving as well. And what we've really learned is that through all of that experience and through all of those changes, it's really important to also think about the user at the receiving end, the one that's going to be engaging in that learning, the individual who's going to be taking part in that. So what we wanted to do to begin with is just show you some impressive stats that we found. And you can read these for yourselves, but it reinforces the fact of how popular digital learning is. With the new generations of workforce coming through, digital learning is becoming something that more and more people want. More and more people are time poor in organizations today. And so being able to learn on the go is incredibly useful and powerful for them. But also with the advancements of AI, adaptive learning, adaptive technologies, artificial reality, virtual reality, sometimes as organizational leaders or learning leaders, it can be very difficult to understand, well, which one do I pick? Which one do I choose? What is the right thing? And how do we make sure that we actually protect the value of our people, whilst also making sure that we get the best out of all of our learning experiences? So what we want to do over the course of this session is just help you understand what is out there, but also what you can do practically to implement some of these new and emerging technologies into your current learning and development portfolios. So there's many technologies out there, as we've said. AI, AR, VR, I've often had this thing of, is it a fad or is it the future? Is this something that's going to stick around? And actually, you know, people who know that AI is something that's been around for a long time, actually in many different forms and in many different shapes. People often think the realization of AI is when we had ChatGPT. Well, actually, that's just a form of artificial intelligence. Everything else that's come before it has already existed. But how is it evolving? How is that going to help us help our people learn better? How is it going to help us unlock their potential in the roles that they do? Things around adaptive learning experiences on this slide as well is really important, because people learn in very different ways and people want to learn in very different ways. Not everybody right now wants to take on board learning in a formulaic, set out, read this, engage with that, watch this video. People want it to feel personal to them and people want to be engaged with that. So actually, as organizations, how do we make sure that our learning is adaptive, but also personalized to what people want to focus on? You'll see on this slide, we've put other options on there, the adaptive learning platforms, virtual classroom tech, and also how tech caters for those diverse needs. We just want to run a quick poll just to kind of see what are some of the things that you've been focused on. Have you been focused on some of the AR? Have you been focused on virtual classroom tech? But then when we consider the impact of these, it links us back to personalization. So the poll's already there. It beat me to it. Thank you. But personalization in learning is important to me. I want you to give that a yes or a no. So give me a yes or a no on whether personalization in learning is important to you. Awesome. So look at that. We've got lots and lots already. 93% giving us a yes. Small percentage are saying a no, which is also quite interesting. And feel free to use a chat if you want to use a chat to give us some insights into why it's important to you, or for those that have voted no, why it's not important to you, because that's also useful to know when we're talking about diverse audiences, diverse learning styles. It's great that we get this this mixture. So I'm going to chuck over to Leon right now, just to kind of give us a bit of brief behind those stats that we're seeing, and see if anybody's popping anything in chat to give us the rationale or thoughts behind that.
Yeah, so we've obviously got nothing further on the chat around the question. There's no comments in the chat at the moment, Lee, around anything to do with personalization. But has anyone got any thoughts on that? Anything they want to jump in? So we've got one here. Language is important to me, but that's what is most important to me. Yeah, and language is important. I think, one of the time, we see quite often, and working closely with clients at the moment on translation, for example, the power of AI to be able to speed that up is something that's huge in the industry right now, Carrie. And I think, is it perfect? No. It's stronger in certain languages than others, but it's certainly a way to personalize learning for people. It links back to that personalization piece. English is a default in most organizations, but actually I think harnessing the power of technology is helping with that. But more importantly, it allows us to pivot now and use technology to make learning personal. So yeah, it's important to me as well. But I know we're working with organizations more and more on tailoring solutions to languages. So yes, it can be designed in English, but you can use the power of AI now to default certain languages. But then you also have to realize that actually some things don't always translate, and that's really, really important as well when it comes to a learning experience. So making sure things that still fit for purpose culturally, and that's something we'll touch on more as we go through the solution. So through this presentation. So thanks for that, Carrie.
Awesome. And there's a couple of comments as well in the chat talking about role-based and being role-based. I think that's really important, you know, whether it's actually personalization down to the individual and what they want to experience and learn about and how they learn, but also the job that they're going to be doing, right? I think we can all appreciate if we've joined organizations in the past where you spend 2 weeks, say, on onboarding as an example, and everything you're being taught is not actually anything to do with your job, but you've got to go through that sort of process. Or you then get learning, which is talking about some sort of sales role, but you work in the back office, but it's a useful way to you to learn about values. So I think that's a really important point as well, Susan. You mentioned about it being role-based. And I think I got a note from Puneet as well, is just to absorb the content, good different activities such as videos, audio, walkthroughs, engaging content, etc. critical. I hope you haven't clicked ahead on our slides because you're absolutely spot on. You know, those sort of mixed modalities of content and how content is learned is so important. And Nina makes a point as well, personalized to my style and interest makes a learner more engaged. Absolutely. You know, we saw on the previous slide where globally there is 3.8 billion smartphones. I read a stat yesterday from a research university who said that 40% of folks now actually find TikTok a useful learning platform. Now, irrespective of what you think of that, and actually, are you learning truthful stuff or not? People are learning this stuff and people are picking up information from these sort of platforms. So definitely giving people access to learning and personalized learning that goes through an algorithm is incredibly important. Awesome. So moving ahead from that, we've kind of touched on this point around personalization. And what I want to be able to do is to kind of give you some practical things. And Leon's going to talk through some practical things that you can be doing and can be thinking about. But why is it important? And why we're sharing this is because actually, you know, sometimes we can lose sight of why personalization and adaptation of learning is important. It doesn't have to be long-winded. It doesn't have to be complex. But the benefits massively outweigh the work that needs to be done to get it there. And for me, this point 4 on here is one that I just want to call out without reading them all out, but promotes autonomy and ownership. You know, when we think about psychologically how we engage to read a book or how we engage to watch a film or watch a TV series, we engage to watch that because we find it interesting, we find it fascinating. We have a sort of cognitive hook to want to watch a particular show or film or particular genre of something. Now, if we can get that same cognitive hook for people to apply how they process this information in the learning world and in organizations, that can be incredibly powerful. And that's what personalization and adaptation allows people to do. Because if we're going to go and learn something around, as an example, sales skills and how to close more deals, actually what I don't want from my perspective is to learn about a process of how to close deals. I want some tips, tricks, and also to hear from some experts in terms of what that's done. Now, if I go onto an LMS platform in the organization, as an example, and nothing in there is suggesting that this is from an expert perspective, or this is a curated video that's really going to help, or actually here's an AI that you can ask some questions to, and that's going to self-coach you and help you get through that situation. That stuff's not there. I'm not going to be bothered to go and click through an e-learning for 20 minutes and learn how to close. So it's really important that the way we set learning up, whether it's portfolios, curriculums, but also the technology that we're utilizing, really is focused on the autonomy and ownership. And we can see that Ravi's got a question in the chat there. What impact do you think AI will have on personalized learning? Your views will be appreciated considering this is the in thing. And you know, opening that up to everybody, absolutely. You know, what will AI enable us to be able to do from a personalized learning perspective? So I just want to flip it over to Leon, because you've heard my voice for a little while now, but how do we do that? If we're talking about actually, these are the benefits, these are the things that we can do, and these are the powerful things that can happen, what can it look like in practice? Leon, some thoughts from yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. And your voice is brilliant, by the way. So, it's far better than my dulcet tones. But, I think some of the things we, reflecting on that question, and Carrie, you put in the Q&A around tailoring to the intellectual level of the audience is important too. You don't like the idea of, potentially dumbing it down, for example. And you raise a really good point. One of the points on here is around multiple perspectives and, density levels of kind of the content. It's certainly digital has allowed us to really evolve in that space. It's allowed us to create things more versatile for people. Layering learning is really, really important. There's not a one size fits all, as we know. The challenge with, certainly in an organizational level, is finding time, budget, capacity to kind of build all that out and do that deep dive. And that's really, really important. Something Lee and I were discussing when we were pulling together these slides for this workshop was around about, how you really harness technology to do that. And there's great ways, right? So, using digital, using mobile content is really key. Certainly virtual classrooms, something as simple as that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's not necessarily a silver bullet, but actually virtual classroom technology has really come a long way to really make that immersive. It's no longer a webinar as it once was. You've got breakout rooms. You can allow, time zone friendly. That's really key as well. We find quite often we just do it at time zones that suit us, or in the morning or in the day, but actually using technology allows you to now do that globally. So if you think of the US and the UK, previously they might have been trained very separate, but actually there's a full half day that overlaps, and this links into some of the content examples we've got later on. But using virtual classroom allows you to bring global audiences together really easy, and that can personalize, because then you can help with that layering, which is something that Carrie was alluding to, rather than bringing everybody, all leaders together at the same, at different levels, but we just need to do this one content. Actually designing that content for the audience is really, really important. I think on the other side as well is creating curriculums. That's really key. That learner journey pathway is really important. So leveraging your, LXP, LMS, whatever kind of technology you're using in that space is really key for that personalized learning. It's really important because actually, if you're creating that to the skill set, or that job family, if you want to look at it as simple as that, it allows you then to create that journey unique for that team, person, department, whatever that might be. And that's something we would actually to consider by leveraging your technology in that respect. There's lots of platforms out there that actually do some amazing things, but sometimes it can be too much. Keeping it simple is really, really important. I think time constraints, this is something that comes out quite often when it comes to being able to do all that fancy stuff and creating things in different languages. And that's where I think the power of AI really, really plays a part. That's been quite a couple of comments in the chat. But, leveraging AI to create videos, to create, toolkits that will help you sustain and embed, that can feel quite personal. So your actual content might be quite generic because you need to do it more and get a message across to a larger audience. But the embedding element can be very much unique to that skill set or to that person or that individual. So that's something else to really consider, is leveraging the power of AI to do things faster and quicker, which will allow you to then do that for the different levels or the different roles. For example, you might be training salespeople, you might be training customer service people in the more traditional contact center setting, for example. The training is very, very different for that skill set. So it's really important that they have stuff that's unique to them. Something that Lee talks a lot of, and he'll pick this up later on, is around kind of knowledge shots, brain food, and skill shots. And that's that way of, that learn, embed, sustain, which is something that's really critical for that personalization. Otherwise, people, making learning not sticky for that person, they won't remember it. They'll just go, oh, that was a great day, in the classroom or whatever it might be, or I, absorbed some content there on the digital platform and I don't remember it because it meant nothing to me. And that's a great way of using adaptive learning, certainly for compliance. We see that quite often. It's every year we do that compliance, and you'll have a book that you pull out with all the answers in. But actually, we worked with a client not so long ago around completely overhauling the compliance and improving speed to competence on that, but also reducing the amount of time they were doing compliance training, because we know it every year. So if you make it personalized to them and there's questions up front and then feed in the information that they got wrong and tailor that learning experience. That's a great way of getting content across and harnessing the power of technology. So those are just a few little things that we've done. Lee, I don't know if you've got anything you want to chuck into that when it comes to tips and tricks on personalization.
No, I don't think so, really. I just echoing that. And I think when we see something like AI as an enabler, not a fixer to
Silver
learning
bullet.
growth,
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And actually, what I've seen work really well is AI as an algorithm to help people and help systems learn how people are interacting. So where we've built system simulations in the past and then plug AI in the background, how quick somebody navigates around that system, how quick somebody is able to click and find the options without actually having any
Absolutely.
direct learning beforehand. The ability for that to be able to then say, right, you only need 2 hours worth of systems training, rather than somebody who really struggles and says, okay, you need 6 hours over the next 3 weeks of systems training. That for me is really powerful when you're thinking about time constraints and when you're thinking about those density levels as well. Awesome. So moving forward from the personalizing learning, let's have a look now at what we're thinking here around enhancing engagement. And some of these points in here you won't see as any huge surprises. They're all there. But actually, you would be amazed at how many people can forget some of these elements or think or find reasons to not do them, i.e. points or tracking progress or rewards. People might sit there and think, actually, our people are not bothered about little nudges and little encouragements that they can get or points that they can get. Duolingo transformed what it is to learn languages and is a multi-billion-pound organization right now. So actually, if they just sat there and go, oh no, people will be happy with these systems where they can buy CD-ROMs and learn the languages or read a book about how to learn a language, they wouldn't be where they are today, and more thousands and millions of people wouldn't be learning new languages. So actually, sometimes we've got to think, how do we give our people access to this type of interactivity? Because clearly it works, it engages people, and people are learning so much in this way. So what I would say, what our point is around enhancing engagement, is don't talk yourself out of it. Find a reason to do it, not a reason not to do it. And for some organizations, this will be taking small steps toward that way. We're all not going to have an app in the next 6 months, right? Pretty cognizant about that fact. But how do we demonstrate reward? How do we demonstrate progress? And how do we enable people to be seen in that space? Something I've been incredibly passionate about all through my career of consulting and learning is around building experiences. People learn when they feel. If you ain't feeling it, you ain't learning it. And it's as simple as that. We all remember from our, say, kindergarten or our primary schools, the teachers that we really just connected with, the ones that made science explode in your face and have gases and fire in the classroom. You remember those things. And actually, the same can be true for learning, and the same can be true for learning at work, whether that's in a virtual classroom environment, whether that's in a digital learning experience or face-to-face. But actually, when we're talking about helping people leverage technology to build experiences, use real work. They don't want to see fictitious scenarios half the time. They want to see real things represented by real people, representing the real work that they will do. That will hook them in, and that will make them feel. If you think about some of the videos that you see maybe on YouTube Shorts or on TikTok or on Instagram, people stop their casual thumb scrolling and something captures them. And actually all that's done is the algorithm behind it has learned what you're interested in and what you stop at, and it presents that to you. Now, if you've got an LMS or an LXP or a digital technology to be able to put in front of people and say, actually, you seem interested in this. Here's some videos popping up, but in a very casual way. People would engage with that far more. So really focus on building these experiences and building this information, and leverage AI as a final point on there. I won't go through keep it simple because, I do like to keep it simple, but leveraging AI, you can translate stuff easily. You can actually get content from, say, ChatGPT or something like that. But it's only as good as the stuff that's been programmed to put it there in the first place. And actually, this is why I'm always on the fence around, is it a fad? Is it the future? And actually, I kind of more come into the solution that it is an enabler, but also it's neither one or the other. It's not a fad, it's not a future, it's in that very experimental phase. But what we've seen with our work with organizations is if you use it in the right way, it can be incredibly powerful. But don't just use it. You have to use it in conjunction with lots of other things as well. So there are just some thoughts there around actually how we can continue to enhance engagement. But if you're going to start somewhere, gamification is a big thing for people right now. Harvard Business Review do constant studies of what engages people the most. Gamification comes out there. Millennial, Gen Zs, all coming in the workforce is what motivates them the most. But some quick examples from Leon here in terms of how some of this stuff can be brought to life, and actually some of the things that you can actually do with these elements.
I think, yeah, thanks, Lee. Just on the final point on that AI point, for me, it's really important you use a human to double check it. I think, that is really key because, we've seen incidents, certainly on translations. Again, we've mentioned this a couple of times. It's not perfect. So, that if there's one key takeaway, if you're exploring the world of AI, is, don't neglect the humans. Make sure that they absolutely do keep an eye on it because it's only, as you said, as good as what's put into it. So when you're using, focusing on enhancing engagement, I think a couple of things then to call out here, and I won't go through loads of detail. So I'm cautious of time, and you guys can read. But certainly, what we're finding is, and actually, when we were looking at the information on this, we come across a survey in 2023 that said the average attention span of a human is around 8.25 seconds. And that's quite amazing when they say an average fish has 9 seconds. I think I'm probably one of them average humans without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that's why it's really important that, people not only, yes, feel personalization, but are engaged. Engage at that moment is really, really important. So whether you're doing interactive session content to, do a system simulation, for example, rather than traditional PowerPoints that you'd click through, whether you're building out gamification, I think gamification is really important. I think it has a part, but it's also can be quite gimmicky in some respects. It's about knowing your audience, who you're creating it for as well. And gamification doesn't mean a game. It can be something quite simple as click and, reveal or drag and drop. It doesn't always have to be a full immersive virtual world, for example. But actually, some great ways of using digital content is them virtual worlds that you can create. Again, over my learning career, I've created many, even through customer scenarios where we built out scenarios behind the scenes. They've moved for a virtual world to interact with the customers on a point scoring basis. So there's lots of great ways where you can use digital content to bring that engagement to life. And I think that's really key. But also at the minute, there's some really cool, content out there. I looked at a platform last week, and it was quite interesting actually with how they've done it, where you could upload your facilitated slides into it, and it would kick out a video. It would slice it up for you. Clues in the name there, guys. But it would slice it up for you, and put voiceover and create into short videos, which was great for the embedding element to keep people engaged as well on that sustain piece. So there's lots of great ways of building out engagement in there. I think multimedia plays a key part. Lots of people love videos. Videos are a great way of getting large amounts of information across in a short space of time. So I would really encourage you to start exploring videos. And if videos are new to you, there's some great way of using AI video creation as a start point. It's affordable. It's budget friendly, more important, but also it's quick, simple, and easy. And I think that's a real key place to play, because it's really important when you're also creating learning that it's engaging for you to create, because ultimately those learners are going to go on and see your masterpiece ultimately. So that's really important. Micro learning, I think, just on a point, and this feeds into a session later on. If 8.25 seconds is all you've got to engage someone, micro learning is really important. People are so busy in this day and age. People don't have the time. But actually, some of the great ways that I learn, for example, as an individual, is if I want to know something, I will go on TikTok, or I will go on, look at a reel, or I might, go on YouTube and watch a short video, and I've learned it in a heartbeat. That's a great way to play in the workplace. And again, nothing here is new. We've been talking about this stuff for years, but we're still not getting it right. And I think that's, what we're seeing quite often, across the globe. And that's why we just wanted to call these few things out. So I'll hand back over to you, Lee.
Awesome. Cheers, Leon. We have got a question as well, which was just out of curiosity, which tool was that? I said it was Slice. Did you say it was Slice?
Yeah, it's called Slice, and you know it is a great tool actually to use, and it's something that I was having to play around with last week. So yeah, worth having a look at, guys.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So from that, we're going to have another poll. So because look, 8.25 seconds. We don't want anybody being a fish here. So a poll question. And it's interesting, this one, because we do want to get a bit of a picture of how many people are doing this, because and you're already answering it, which is amazing. But the rationale behind asking this question is because when we've looked and worked with organizations, systems training is one that can benefit the most from new technology in terms of how people learn it. But still, there are many organizations relying on dummy systems, training manuals, and also just helping people sit with somebody and find it out or watch a video. But actually, there could be heaps more that can be done to leverage technology to help with product and system simulations. So we're seeing 73% are saying, yes, they've done it before. Awesome. And feel free to share in chat why it was useful, and actually was it useful in terms of doing learning get my words out, learning simulations for products or systems. And then 26% have said no. And it is one of those things where actually you could start to make advancements in how people learn a system by overlaying learning, by utilizing AI, like we said earlier, in terms of monitoring click spots, monitoring pace of mouse movement. All of those sorts of things can start to give you data and indications as to how easily people are learning this system, and actually what their current competence or confidence level is on the system as well. So don't be afraid to look at those things. And I've had a message pop up. It's quite helpful for individuals who want hand-on experience. 100%. Some people, I'm one of those actually, that I think as I'm getting older, 38, but as I'm getting older, I like to sort of get stuck in more. Whereas when I was younger, before I was 38, it was more about wanting to kind of learn it, read it, understand it. So, again, learning styles change, but also actually people who want to get hands-on absolutely can as well. So thanks for that, folks. Now, we've given you some ideas, some thoughts, some food for thought, hopefully confirm some things that you're already thinking about, already working on, and also some sense of ideas and considerations that can be done. We might have made it sound a little bit easy, but we recognize that actually it's not always easy to get these types of new technologies in, new ways of doing things. There can be barriers, challenges in the way. We recognize that things like infrastructure and privacy and data security can be a big factor in terms of whether an organization is going to allow LinkedIn Live, as an example, or LinkedIn Learning, or allow TikTok. I don't think anybody's really going to allow TikTok. But if there was a platform that you can actually bring in that is going to help your people learn better, learn faster, learn deeper, and do better and be more high performing, but the business go, actually, no, our compliance regulation won't allow us to do that. I don't know whether it's kind of a consideration of people, but there's that point where we then need to think, how do we change this? How do we actually think about pushing this forward, and how do we find some other ways of doing these things? Mitigating a resistance to digital evolution is a big factor as well. And actually, Leon and I have come up with these over our years of experience, and we've helped organizations with these. But what we wanted to do is just to capture where your thoughts are at and actually what your considerations are. So this is the last poll. Just waiting for a collective, but this is the last poll to get a sense of actually which of these do you see as the biggest hurdle or hurdles in your organization? It is a single choice, so you kind of pushing to pick one, and we're just going to see what's popping through on there. So definitely coming through at the top is infrastructure training so far and cost. So we've got that at around about 60% roughly.
Surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising. Privacy, data security, yeah, one size certainly doesn't fit all, absolutely. And what we're going to do is we're going to capture that data because it is something that we focus on, and particularly because over half of you have said around that implementation hurdles. That's something that actually is possible to be achieved. It just takes a lot of work sometimes, negotiation and influencing to get there, but definitely some food for thought. So kind of on our final element here, I'm going to hand over to Leon to talk about what it looks like from a global workforce perspective.
So I'm going to do a quick fire here because I'm cautious of time for everybody. So again, a few little tips and tricks here when it comes to these are my three favorite areas of using technology ultimately to really create that personalization, engagement, but ultimately that to target that global audience. So a few use cases, if I may, from my career. So, one of the ways that I've always found with onboarding is a great way of not only driving engagement, improving speed to competence, but tailoring it to a global audience when it comes to onboarding, is by blending around 40% of the onboarding program using digital content. And that might be interactive PDFs, it might be Rise or using Articulate, for example, use of video, but truly blending that onboarding experience can help people learn faster, quicker, simpler, but also at a global level. So that's really key to leveraging technology and bringing that down. I think what also allows it to do is, a great tip is build your onboarding program so they can be delivered either in person or virtually, because that allows that time zone piece that I linked to earlier on. We're trying to, leverage that global audience a bit easier. If you've recruited 5 people, for example, in the US and 10 people in the UK, previously we treat them separate and maybe do it in person, but using virtual classroom these days, bring them onto the same session. So leveraging digital, for example, and I've done this in the contact center space at Volume as well. And it's a great way of training a global audience, but using one facilitator anywhere in the world as well. So I would 100% recommend you look at that. And another great way, so we have a chat bot called Ubot actually. And we've started to use this with clients, so playing around with AI, as most people have, to help embed the knowledge. So if you look at a typical contact center, and I'm sure many of you on here represent that world, you used to have like floor walkers, and you'd have a team of 20 who'd just been trained, and then you might have 6 floor walkers. But actually, using the power of AI now, if you program and really enhance the power of a chatbot, you can actually get the new agents to ask at the moment of need, rather than putting their hand up and waiting and keeping that customer, for example, on the line. If they ask a chatbot and using the power of AI, they can get them simpler answers faster, leaving the more complicated stuff for a coach or a floor walker. So that's another great way of embedding, but also using it for knowledge as well. So a lot of organizations have knowledge systems, chuck that into a chatbot and build your own chatbot internally, and it'll help embed. So rather than people trawling through a knowledge bank, they can see it instantly through the power of a chatbot. So another great way of embedding and helping that and improving that speed to competence using technology. The other kind of call it is leadership then. So one of the things that I mentioned that Lee would allude back to shortly, and I'll hand over to him, but using virtual classrooms for leaders is really important. But, chuck the knowledge digitally. Get people to use the knowledge digitally. Leaders' time is so precious. Don't drag them away for days on end as we used to do, unless there's a true need. But give the knowledge digitally and bring it to life so that they can embed and put it into practice with a human, whether that's via a virtual classroom globally or in person or a blend of both. But we're finding that's a great way when it comes to leadership solutions, and we're really finding leaders are powering faster as well. So, Lee, you've got a piece on that, and I don't know if you just want to touch around that quickly on leadership.
Yeah, and it was just something you mentioned earlier around actually allowing people to learn in a way that helps them the most. So actually breaking down what that learning looks like. So in the sense of knowledge shots to begin with, a knowledge shot might be a micro piece of learning. It could be an AI chatbot that somebody's using to learn a piece of information. So a knowledge shot. And then also thinking about brain food. There are more inquisitive people out there. So how do we give people content or curated content or self-made videos that they can actually start to delve a little bit deeper into a particular topic and get that brain engaged? And then a skill shot. So utilizing AI and other forms of AI to help you actually develop your skills in real time. So if you're kind of having a conversation, say for example, somebody's working on email campaign, or somebody's working on a customer service campaign to be able to engage with a customer on chat, utilizing that in terms of AI to practice those skills and get those reactions in real time, but from a system, can be incredibly powerful as well. So that's just why I wanted to call out the knowledge shots, the brain food, and also the skill shots as well.
Thanks, Lee. And then finally, it's sales. So salespeople like to be out and about. They want to be earning their dollar, whether it's a dollar, pound, euro, cent, whatever it might be. They want to be earning that. So actually a great way is keeping them on the go. I would say mobile first when it comes to salespeople, where you can to give them the knowledge, access to that moment of need, but also keeping it bite-sized. That's really powerful for salespeople on the go. So, that's a great way. I would say in gamification, big tip when it comes to a lot of salespeople. They really love that gamification. It's fun, it's creative, and it's competitive. And I would say that's a real great way of leveraging digital to engage your sales audience as well. But remember, time is precious, so less is more on that part. Ravi, I've just seen a point, and I will touch on that for you. A couple of great AI tools that I personally like. So Synthesia is one that I use quite often with my team. So we really like Synthesia when it comes to translations and leveraging that. And the other one that I will paste in is called, it's spelled Colossyan, Colossyan. Great platform as well. It's a video tool for workplace learning. So again, worthwhile having a look. And there's another couple of tools for you there alongside Slice. Lee, to yourself.
Thank you. So wrapping up and in conclusion, and we've got a question come in from Puneet as well, which we will answer. I think I'm not going to read out the points here, but just be conscious of that last one around being careful of tech and don't neglect the humans. We can be like magpies sometimes. That might be a very British term to share, so I do apologize. But what I mean by that is actually sometimes we go after the next new shiny thing and actually let's do this because it seems great and it's going to help us transform our business. But that's been built by somebody to make money, to make a business, or to help solve a problem. Just make sure that it helps you solve your problem and actually your humans, your people, your human capital, your potential of people in your business is also being able to be aligned towards that, and it's really going to help them make a fundamental change. And then with the question from Puneet, with more and more businesses focusing on an agile way of working, training content becomes quite challenging with projects focused on minimum viable products, and designing content becomes quite challenging. Any tips on how to manage these? I think it's a really interesting point. And I just want to pick up on the thing there around and designing content becomes quite challenging. I think, and just reading between the lines, I always feel there could be two different things there. Is it the thought leadership aspect of actually being able to take time to understand a new theory or to construct a tool or model yourself, or be able to leverage technology to go, do you know what, I just want to play with this a little bit to understand how it works, to then be able to see if it could be implemented and help us. But then you've got a Monday.com board that's telling you you've got one more day and you think, actually, I haven't got time for that. So I'm just going to go with what's usual and what I know. It's a very difficult one. I think one of the things that I always found profound is I read a book. I think it was written about Google. I can't remember the name of it. I'll find it out and we'll get the guys to share it. But one of the things it talked about is the Google special projects, where everybody in Google had this time of around about 1 to 2 hours a month where they could go and do whatever they wanted and go and focus on anything that they wanted. And on a previous leadership development program that I used to run, we used to have an astronaut called Ed Lu, who was on the space program, spent time on the International Space Station. He used to work for Google. And in the Google special projects, he said it would be amazing if people could see the Earth like I've seen it from space. And actually, he then drove around and was able to recreate the Earth in technology using Google special projects just in his own time, but provided by the business. And then said, actually, if we're zooming in on the Earth, why can't we see what's on the Earth? And then before we knew it, Google Street View became into being. So actually, an organization enabling people to take time out to be able to research, to play, to go and experiment is incredibly powerful and helpful. So I know we don't necessarily have the time to delve into that or go back and forward with that question, Puni, but hopefully that gives a bit of a sense of actually sometimes we do need to kick back to the business and say, look, we've got two choices. We do something here, or we can do the right thing by doing X and investing a bit more time to understand what's right. So that would be my penance on that point. But coming to wrapping up about Infopro Learning, there was a video at the start. You've also had an opportunity to engage with us as part of this session, and thank you so much for the questions, for the comments. And I can see comments are going in there as well, which is amazing. Feel free to reach out. There's a note in there around LinkedIn. Absolutely feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and get in touch. It's been 45 minutes. We wanted to give you a quick heads up, some insights, some thoughts, but I just want to say thank you for giving us the time, and all of a sudden we've transformed into Drew and Jacob. But thank you very much. And Leon, any final words from you?
No, thanks very much, everyone, and feel free to connect with us if you want to talk more. Always up for a virtual coffee.
I
Thanks,
know
Dee.
the time just goes by so quickly, but thank you. This has been so informative and always interesting. So I hope you will join us again for a future leader talk.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Right. Up next, we will have a short break. And at the top of the hour, we will be joined by Drew Remaker and Jacob Nicklau. They are joining us from NovoEd to talk about frontline training for global businesses, 5 tips for scaling engaging programs, sorry. So in just a moment, I will end this session, and you can join our next session by returning to the event lobby and going to the session tab and joining us for today's final presentation. I'll see you in just a few minutes.